After falling off her horse, a romantic billionaire finds love with a single father. The Saturday morning sun stretched across Celeste Davenport's private ranch like honey on warm bread, golden and thick and promising. She'd inherited this land along with everything else: the Melbrook Hotel empire, the mansion on the hill, the investment portfolios her late husband had built before his heart gave out at 47. She was 24 years old and owned more property than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. None of it made her happy. Storm, her gray Andalusian stallion, shifted beneath her as they approached the creek that divided the eastern pasture from the hills. Celeste loosened the reins, letting him drink, watching the water ripple in patterns that reminded her of expensive silk. Everything in her life reminded her of expensive things. The leather saddle custom-made in Argentina, the diamond studs in her ears that cost more than a car, the loneliness that pressed against her ribs like a physical weight. "Easy, boy," she murmured, stroking Storm's neck. The horse was her only real companion these days. Animals didn't care about your net worth. They didn't whisper behind your back at charity galas or calculate their words to extract favors. Storm simply existed beside her, warm and alive and uncomplicated. The creek water ran clear over smooth stones. Celeste dismounted, her boots squelching in the mud as she led Storm to a grassy patch. She was wearing her weekend uniform, the royal blue blazer she couldn't seem to abandon even on her own property, denim shorts that scandalized her mother-in-law, and riding boots that had actually been broken in through use rather than purchased pre-distressed. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical braid, though strands had already escaped to frame her sun-bronzed face. She checked her phone. No messages. No emergencies at the hotel. No one wondering where she was, or whether she'd come home. The freedom should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt like abandonment. "You ever feel invisible, Storm?" she asked the horse. "Like you could disappear and it would take people weeks to notice?" Storm snorted and continued grazing. Celeste laughed despite herself. At least someone found her philosophical musings boring. The ranch had been her refuge since inheriting everything 18 months ago. Every Saturday and Sunday morning, weather permitting, she rode these same trails. Sometimes she brought a book and read under the old oak tree by the south fence. Sometimes she just rode in circles, letting Storm's steady rhythm quiet the chaos in her mind. The staff knew to leave her alone on weekends. The board members knew not to call unless the hotel was literally on fire. This was her time, her space, her one pocket of existence where she didn't have to perform. She walked Storm along the creek bank, following the water upstream toward the rocky outcropping where wildflowers grew in defiant bursts of color. The morning was perfect, cool enough to be comfortable, warm enough to promise a hot afternoon. Birds called from the trees. A red-tailed hawk circled overhead, riding the thermals with enviable freedom. Celeste envied that hawk. It didn't have board meetings or quarterly reports or a dead husband's family questioning every decision. It just flew. "What do you think, Storm?" she asked, running her hand along his warm flank. "Should I just sell everything and move to Montana? Raise alpacas or something equally ridiculous?" Storm waffled and nudged her shoulder, probably hoping for the apple she usually brought. She'd forgotten it this morning in her rush to escape the house and its oppressive silence. "Sorry, buddy. No treats today. I'm a terrible horse mom." She was about to remount when she heard it, a rattlesnake's distinctive warning, that dry buzz that turned blood to ice water. The sound came from somewhere in the tall grass to their left, close enough to be a threat. Storm heard it too. The stallion's head jerked up, eyes rolling white with panic. Celeste grabbed for the reins, but she was a half-second too slow. Storm reared, front hooves slashing the air like weapons. Celeste held on through the first buck, her thighs clamped tight, hands twisted in the mane. She'd trained for this scenario in riding lessons as a teenager. Stay centered, keep your seat, talk him down. But the second buck came with a violent twist that no amount of training could prepare her for. Storm spun mid-rear, trying to flee and attack simultaneously, and physics won. Celeste felt herself airborne, weightless for a heartbeat that seemed to stretch into eternity. The ground rushed up to meet her. The impact knocked every molecule of oxygen from her lungs. Pain exploded through her left side, her hip, her shoulder, her ribs. The world tilted sideways and grayed at the edges. She tried to breathe and couldn't, tried to move and couldn't. Somewhere above her, Storm's hoofbeats thundered away in blind panic, fading into the distance. She was going to die here, alone on her own land, where no one would find her until Monday when the ranch hands came back to work. The irony was so perfect it would have made her laugh if she could remember how to breathe. The lonely billionaire, dead in her own backyard while the world went on without noticing. Her vision was tunneling, consciousness slipping away like water through her fingers. Then she heard footsteps. Running footsteps, heavy boots on grass. "Ma'am? Ma'am, don't move. I'm right here." The voice was male, deep, tinged with concern but steady, not panicked. Celeste managed to crack her eyes open and saw him kneeling beside her. A man in a blue maintenance uniform, yellow work gloves still on his hands, dark hair falling across his forehead as he leaned over her. Ryan Walker. She recognized him from the hotel. He was one of the maintenance crew, the quiet one who fixed broken things and never made small talk in the elevator. What was he doing on her ranch? "Can you breathe?" he asked. His eyes were brown, she noticed. Warm brown with gold flecks, the kind of eyes that smiled even when his mouth didn't. "Take small sips of air. Don't force it." Celeste tried to obey. Small sips. Her lungs remembered their function, pulling in blessed oxygen in tiny, painful gasps. The gray receded from her vision. She became aware of his hand on her shoulder, gentle, steady, grounding her to reality. "That's it," he said softly. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." "Storm," she managed to croak. "My horse. Already halfway to the barn by now," Ryan said. "Horses are smarter than people give them credit for. He'll go home when he's done being scared. Probably already there, actually, demanding his breakfast like nothing happened." She tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her ribs, sharp enough to make her gasp. Ryan's other hand came to her back, supporting her weight as she pushed herself halfway upright. "Slow," he cautioned. "You might have broken something. Can you move your fingers? Your toes?" Celeste wiggled them experimentally. Everything worked, even if it hurt like hell. "I think I'm intact. Just bruised. Badly bruised." "Bruised is better than broken." Ryan helped her shift into a sitting position, his movements careful and practiced. "Though you're going to feel like you went 10 rounds with a heavyweight for the next few days. Maybe a week." "You say that like you have experience," Celeste said, then winced as another wave of pain rolled through her shoulder. "Used to box in my 20s. Before I discovered motorcycles were more fun and less likely to give me brain damage." He smiled then, quick and genuine, and Celeste felt something unexpected flutter in her chest. "I'm going to check your head now, okay? Make sure you didn't crack your skull. Head injuries are sneaky. You feel fine 1 minute, unconscious the next." His fingers probed gently through her hair, checking for bumps and bleeding. Celeste closed her eyes, suddenly overwhelmed by the intimacy of the gesture. When was the last time someone had touched her with care instead of calculation? When had anyone last looked at her like she was a person, rather than a bank account with legs? His touch was methodical but gentle, the kind of competence that came from experience. She could feel the calluses on his fingertips rough against her scalp. Working hands. Hands that built and fixed and created instead of just signing checks. "No blood," Ryan announced, sitting back on his heels. "No obvious swelling. But you should still get checked out by a doctor. Head injuries are tricky. You can seem fine for hours and then suddenly not fine at all." "I'll be fine," Celeste said automatically. The response was so ingrained she didn't even think about it. She'd been fine through her husband's illness, fine through his funeral, fine through 18 months of running a corporation she'd never wanted to run. Fine was her default setting, her armor against the world. Ryan raised an eyebrow, and something about his expression, skeptical but not unkind, made her realize how hollow the words sounded. "With all due respect, ma'am, that's what people say right before they fall over unconscious," he said. "At least let me help you back to the house. You shouldn't be alone right now." "Celeste," she said. "My name is Celeste, and you're Ryan, right, from the hotel?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, that she knew his name. Most people in her position wouldn't. The CEO didn't typically know the maintenance staff by name, let alone face. "Yes, ma'am, Celeste." He tested the name carefully, like it was something delicate. "I do odd jobs on the weekends. Your ranch manager, Tom, hired me to fix some fence posts on the south boundary. They've been leaning after that storm last month. I heard the scream and came running." "Lucky for me," Celeste said. She tried to stand and immediately regretted it. Her hip screamed in protest and she would have fallen if Ryan hadn't caught her elbow. "Easy," he murmured. "Let me help." He pulled her arm across his shoulders and wrapped his other arm around her waist, taking most of her weight. They began the slow walk back toward the distant house, Celeste hobbling on her good leg while Ryan matched his pace to hers. She could smell him, honest sweat and motor oil and something clean, like soap without artificial fragrance. It was the most human thing she'd encountered in months. The walk that should have taken 10 minutes stretched into 25. Every step sent jolts of pain through Celeste's hip, but Ryan never rushed her, never showed impatience. He just walked beside her, steady and solid, occasionally adjusting his grip when she stumbled. "You live in that big house all alone?" Ryan asked after a few minutes of silence. "Is that obvious?" "Only because there's no other cars in the driveway, and the flowers on the porch are plastic." Celeste laughed, which hurt her ribs, but felt good anyway. "The real ones kept dying. I couldn't keep anything alive, so I gave up and bought fake ones." "Pathetic, right?" "Not pathetic," Ryan said. "Practical. Though you might consider succulents. Hard to kill those. I had one survive 3 months in my garage before I remembered to water it. I managed to kill a cactus once," Celeste admitted. "Overwatered it. It rotted from the roots up. I have a gift for destroying plants." "The gift of overcaring," Ryan said. "That's actually kind of sweet." They reached the steps to the back porch. Ryan helped her navigate each one, patient and unhurried. The house loomed above them, all 8,000 square feet of Spanish colonial architecture and empty rooms. Celeste had loved it once when her husband was alive and the space had felt like possibility instead of abandonment. Now it was just a monument to everything she'd lost. "Where's your phone?" Ryan asked as they made it through the back door into the kitchen. "Back pocket." "Why?" He helped her onto one of the kitchen chairs, then pulled out her phone and handed it to her. "You need to call someone. Family, friend, doctor, someone who can check on you for the next 24 hours. Concussion protocol. You don't want to be alone if something goes wrong." Celeste stared at the phone in her hand. The contacts list was impressively long. Business associates, hotel executives, society acquaintances, her late husband's family who tolerated her existence while waiting for her to sell the company and disappear. Not a single person she could call and say, "I fell off my horse and I'm scared and I don't want to be alone." The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had hundreds of contacts and 0 friends, thousands of employees, and no one who actually cared whether she lived or died beyond the inconvenience her death would cause their quarterly earnings. "I don't really have anyone," she heard herself say. The admission shocked her. She'd never said it out loud before, never let herself acknowledge the truth so plainly. Ryan pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. He'd removed his yellow work gloves, and she could see his hands properly now. Strong, capable hands, with calluses and old scars. Mechanic's hands. Builder's hands. Hands that fixed broken things. "Then I'll stay," he said simply. "You don't have to do that. I'm sure you have somewhere to be." "I was planning to spend the afternoon rebuilding a carburetor on my Harley," Ryan said. "The bike can wait. You took a hard fall. Someone should make sure you don't slip into a coma and die." "That's morbid. That's realistic." He stood and moved to her refrigerator, opening it without asking permission. "When was the last time you ate?" Celeste tried to remember. "Coffee this morning? Maybe some toast?" "I don't really remember." Ryan made a disapproving sound and started pulling out ingredients. Eggs, cheese, vegetables she'd forgotten she owned. A package of bacon that was miraculously still good. "You're going to eat something now. Actual food, not coffee. And then you're going to rest while I finish those fence posts. And then I'm going to check on you every couple of hours until I'm convinced you're not going to die on my watch." "You're very bossy for an employee," Celeste observed. "I'm off the clock," Ryan replied, cracking eggs into a bowl. "And you're not my boss right now. You're a person who got hurt and needs help. Big difference." She watched him work, moving around her kitchen with the same quiet competence he probably brought to fixing leaky pipes and broken door handles. He found a pan, located her spices, whisked eggs with the efficiency of someone who'd cooked for himself for years. There was something mesmerizing about it. This stranger making himself at home in her space, not asking for permission or apologizing for existing. Within minutes, the kitchen filled with the smell of bacon and scrambled eggs. Ryan worked with an economy of movement, no wasted effort, no fuss. When everything was ready, he plated it simply. Eggs, bacon, toast, and set it in front of her with a fork. "Eat," he said. "All of it. You need the protein." "You're good at this," Celeste said. "Scrambled eggs aren't exactly rocket science." "I meant taking care of people, being here, not freaking out." Ryan glanced over his shoulder at her. "I've had practice. Life throws curveballs. You either learn to catch them or you spend all your time getting hit in the face." "That sounds like experience talking. I'm 28 years old. I've had time to collect some scars." He poured himself a cup of coffee from her machine, then leaned against the counter, watching, making sure she ate, physical and otherwise. Celeste wanted to ask more, but something in his tone suggested the door was closed on that subject. Instead, she said, "I'm 24, and I feel about 100 years old most days." "Loneliness ages you," Ryan said quietly. "Faster than time." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with recognition. Celeste took a bite of eggs. They were perfect. Fluffy, well-seasoned, made with actual care. She realized she was starving. "Thank you," she said, "for all of this. You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did," Ryan interrupted gently. "That's what decent people do. They help when someone needs it. No strings attached, no expectations of payment or gratitude or anything else, just help because help is needed." Something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so stripped of pretense, made Celeste's throat tighten. She'd been surrounded by people who helped because they wanted something in return. Ryan was helping because he was simply a good human being. The concept was so foreign it felt revolutionary. They sat in comfortable silence while she ate. Ryan checked his phone once, typed a quick message, then put it away. Outside the kitchen window, the afternoon sun slanted through the live oaks that shaded the driveway. Celeste's body was starting to stiffen, the adrenaline wearing off and leaving behind a catalog of aches and pains. But underneath the physical discomfort was something else, something warm and unexpected. Relief, the relief of not being alone. "Tell me about the Harley," Celeste said, pushing her empty plate away. "You said you were rebuilding the carburetor?" Ryan's face lit up, transforming from guarded to genuinely enthusiastic in an instant. 1995 Softail. Got it for $300 at an estate sale. Previous owner let it sit in a garage for 20 years. I've been bringing it back to life piece by piece. It's like solving a puzzle where all the pieces are covered in rust and broken dreams. "Why blue?" He blinked. "What? You painted it blue, right? I've seen you on it in the hotel parking lot. Electric blue, very distinctive. Why that color?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. When he spoke, his voice was softer, more vulnerable. "My dad had a bike that color. He died when I was 16. Lung cancer from working in a factory with asbestos for 20 years. The bike got sold to pay medical bills. We needed every penny we could get. I always told myself if I ever got another Harley, it would be the same blue as his. Like keeping a piece of him alive, like he's still riding with me somehow." Celeste felt her heart contract. "I'm sorry. About your father. That's terrible. Long time ago now." Ryan straightened, pushing off from the counter, but she could see the old grief still there in his eyes. "But thank you. Not many people ask about the why. They just see the bike and make assumptions. Rich kid's toy, midlife crisis, compensating for something. I've heard them all. I see the person who rides it," Celeste said before she could stop herself. "Someone who honors his father's memory. Someone who knows the value of bringing broken things back to life." Their eyes met across the kitchen. Something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. Two people who'd learned to carry loss without letting it define them. Two people who'd built walls around their loneliness, and were surprised to find someone else standing on the other side, waving. Ryan cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "I should get back to those fence posts, but I'll check on you before I leave, and I'm going to give you my number. You call if anything feels wrong. Dizziness, nausea, weird vision, confusion, anything. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. You call. You really don't have to." "Celeste." He said her name like it mattered, like she mattered. "Let someone take care of you for once. The world won't end if you're not in control for a few hours." How did he know? How could this stranger see right through her carefully constructed armor to the frightened, lonely woman underneath? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Ryan programmed his number into her phone, then headed for the back door. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, looking back at her. "For what it's worth, I'm glad I was there today, at the creek." "Me too," Celeste whispered. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving her alone in her enormous kitchen with the taste of scrambled eggs and kindness still on her tongue. She sat very still, listening to the silence of the house. But it felt different now, less like a tomb and more like a space waiting to be filled. The afternoon passed in a haze of pain medication and restless sleep on the living room couch. Celeste's body was a symphony of aches, each movement a reminder of gravity's indifference. But every 2 hours, like clockwork, there was a knock on the back door and Ryan appeared, checking her pupils, asking orientation questions, making sure she could still remember her own name and the current president and what year it was. "This is excessive," she protested on his third visit, squinting against the flashlight he was shining in her eyes. "This is proper concussion protocol," he countered, watching her pupils contract and dilate. "Equal and reactive. That's good. Any nausea? Headache? Blurred vision? Only from your paranoia. I'll take that as a no." He tucked the phone away and checked his watch. "I'm almost done with the posts. Another hour and I'll be out of your hair. Then you can go back to your regularly scheduled loneliness." The words should have stung, but his tone was gentle, almost teasing. Celeste found herself smiling despite the ache in her ribs. "You could stay for dinner," she said impulsively. "I mean, if you want. I could order something, as a thank you, for saving my life and all." Ryan studied her for a long moment. She could see him weighing it, the appropriate distance between employer and employee, the line he'd probably promised himself not to cross, the wisdom of getting involved with a woman who owned half the county. "You should be resting, not entertaining," he said finally. "I'll be resting either way. At least this way I'll have company while I rest." She tried to keep her voice casual, but she could hear the note of pleading underneath. How desperate did she sound? How pathetic. But Ryan's expression softened. Some internal decision made. "What kind of food are we talking about?" "There's a barbecue place that delivers best brisket in the county. I'm pretty sure they smoke it with actual angel tears." "You had me at brisket," Ryan said. "But on one condition. You let me help you upstairs to take a proper shower first. You've got mud in your hair and you smell like horse fear. No offense." Celeste laughed despite herself. "Has anyone ever told you you have a terrible bedside manner? Honesty is underrated." He extended his hand. "Come on, let's get you cleaned up before the food arrives." Getting upstairs was an exercise in humiliation and determination in equal measure. Celeste's hip had stiffened to the point where she could barely bend it, and the stairs might as well have been Mount Everest. Ryan ended up half carrying her, his arm solid around her waist, taking the steps one at a time while she clung to his shoulder and cursed her own weakness. "This is ridiculous," she muttered on the 7th step. "I run a multi-million-dollar company. I manage 300 employees. I can handle a flight of stairs." "Pride is just fear in a fancy suit," Ryan said mildly. "And you're doing great. Only 8 more steps. You've got this." They made it to her bedroom, a massive space dominated by a king-sized bed she slept in alone every night. Silk sheets that cost more than some people's monthly rent and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the ranch. Ryan helped her to the bathroom door, then stepped back, giving her space. "You good from here?" "I can manage a shower without supervision, yes. Call if you need help. I'll be right outside. No judgment, I promise." The shower was torture and salvation in equal measure. The hot water found every bruise, every abraded patch of skin, every protesting muscle, but it also washed away the last of the adrenaline and fear, leaving behind something clearer. Celeste stood under the spray and let herself feel it. The fall, the terror, the unexpected grace of being saved by a stranger who stayed. By the time she emerged wrapped in a bathrobe, her hair in a towel, Ryan had changed the sheets on her bed. "You didn't have to do that," she said, surprised. "Old habits?" he replied, not meeting her eyes. "My mom was a hotel maid for 15 years. I used to help her on weekends when I was a kid, hospital corners and everything. I'll wait downstairs while you get dressed. Take your time." She found him in the living room when she finally made it back down, this time navigating the stairs alone through sheer stubbornness and the death grip she maintained on the railing. He'd ordered the food while she was getting dressed, and now containers of barbecue were spread across her coffee table, like an offering to the gods of comfort food. They ate directly from the containers, neither of them bothering with the formality of plates or utensils beyond forks. The brisket was as good as promised, smoky and tender and absurdly satisfying. The coleslaw was crisp and tangy. The cornbread was sweet and crumbly. They didn't talk much, just the occasional comment about the food or the weather or nothing at all. Comfortable silence, the kind Celeste had forgotten existed between two people who didn't know each other well. "Can I ask you something?" Ryan said eventually, setting down his empty container. "Sure. Why were you out riding alone? On a Saturday morning with no one around, no one knowing where you were?" Celeste considered lying, considered giving him the polished answer she gave everyone else about needing space to think or enjoying solitude or connecting with nature. But something about Ryan, about his directness, his refusal to pretend things away, invited honesty. "Because I'm lonely," she said. The words felt like stones dropping into still water, creating ripples she couldn't control. "And riding makes me feel less alone, even though I'm by myself. The horse doesn't care about my money. He doesn't want anything from me except carrots and consistent care. It's the most honest relationship I have." Ryan nodded slowly. "I get that. My Harley serves the same purpose. When I'm on the bike, it's just me and the road. No expectations, no disappointments, no one asking me to be something I'm not. Just movement and wind and the hum of the engine. Pure. Do you ever get tired of it?" Celeste asked. "The loneliness. Every day." His voice was quiet but steady, honest in a way that made her chest ache. "But I'd rather be lonely than surround myself with people who don't really see me. Quality over quantity, you know? My dad used to say that one real friend is worth 1,000 acquaintances. He was right about that. Is that from Marcus Aurelius, or did you just make that up? Ryan smiled. Made it up. Well, my dad made it up. But Marcus Aurelius would probably agree. He had a lot to say about being selective with your time and energy. You read the Stoics? I read everything. Philosophy, history, beat poetry, cereal boxes. I'm not picky. Books don't judge you for being a maintenance worker who never went to college. They don't care that you're not living up to society's expectations or following the traditional path to success. They just are. Celeste set down her own container and turned to face him fully. I went to an Ivy League school. I have 2 degrees and enough credentials to wallpaper this entire house. And I don't think I've learned half as much as you seem to know about actual living, about what actually matters. That's because you can't learn life from books, Ryan said. You have to live it, make mistakes, fall down, get back up, fall down again. Eventually you figure out which falls teach you something and which ones just hurt. Is that what you're doing, getting it right? I'm trying. He met her eyes. Some days are better than others. Today was a pretty good day, all things considered. You call pulling a stranger out of the dirt and playing nurse a good day? I call meeting someone real a good day, Ryan said quietly. Someone who admits when they're lonely instead of pretending to be fine all the time. Someone who says thank you and actually means it. That's rare. Worth celebrating. They talked until the sun set and the shadows grew long across her hardwood floors. The conversation meandering from topic to topic, with the ease of people who'd somehow skipped past small talk into real connection. Ryan told her about growing up in a small Texas town, about losing his father to cancer and watching his mother work 3 jobs to keep the lights on and food on the table, about dropping out of college after 1 semester because the debt felt like drowning, and the classes felt like pretending to care about things that didn't matter. Everyone told me I was throwing my life away, he said, that I'd regret it forever. But I don't. I discovered that I was happier working with my hands than sitting in a cubicle pretending to care about corporate synergy and market disruption and all the other buzzwords that mean nothing. Celeste told him about inheriting everything too young, about a marriage to a man 20 years her senior that had been more companionship than romance, about the pressure of maintaining an empire she'd never asked for, about the crushing realization that money couldn't buy connection or purpose or a reason to get out of bed that wasn't duty. My husband was kind, she said. He left me everything knowing I didn't want it. I think he hoped that being forced to run the company would give me purpose, would make me feel needed. Instead, it just made me feel trapped, like I'm living someone else's life and forgot to save a copy of my own. You could sell it, Ryan pointed out. The hotel, the company, all of it. Take the money and do something that actually makes you happy, something that feeds your soul instead of just draining it. And what would that be? Celeste asked. I don't even know what makes me happy anymore. I've spent so long being what everyone else needed me to be that I've forgotten who I actually am underneath all the expectations. Then maybe it's time to find out. The words were simple, but they landed with the weight of truth. Celeste felt something shift inside her, a door opening, a possibility emerging from the fog of should and must and have to. It was close to midnight when Ryan finally stood to leave. Celeste walked him to the door, her body protesting every step but her heart oddly light, buoyant in a way she hadn't felt in months. Thank you, she said at the door, for everything. Today could have ended very differently, very badly. Yeah, well, Ryan shrugged into his jacket. I'm glad it ended with barbecue instead of a hospital. That's a win in my book. Will I see you at the hotel this week? I work maintenance Thursday through Sunday. Hard to miss a guy with a blue Harley and questionable fashion choices. I'll look for you, Celeste said, and meant it with an intensity that surprised her. Ryan paused with his hand on the doorknob. Celeste, for what it's worth, you seem pretty clear on who you are to me. A woman who rides horses alone because she's too honest to surround herself with fake friends. A woman who admits when she's lonely instead of pretending everything's perfect. A woman who says thank you to the help and actually means it. That's not nothing. That's actually kind of remarkable. He left before she could respond, the sound of his motorcycle echoing through the quiet night as he rode away. Celeste stood in the doorway long after his taillights disappeared down the long driveway, her hand pressed to her chest where something warm and terrifying had taken root. She'd spent 18 months believing she was invisible, untouchable, defined only by her bank account and her dead husband's legacy. Ryan Walker had seen her, actually seen her, and nothing would ever be the same again. Sunday morning arrived wrapped in golden light and birdsong that seemed louder than usual, more insistent. Celeste woke in her own bed, body aching in fascinating new ways but mind strangely clear, sharper than it had been in months. She reached for her phone and found a text message waiting. Unknown. Number. Checking in. Any dizziness, nausea, or sudden urge to jump back on angry horses? How's the hip? Ryan. She smiled and typed back. Only a sudden urge to thank my unexpected guardian angel again. Hip is purple and impressive. How's the carburetor? The response came quickly. Stubborn. Like someone else I know. But I'm making progress. One bolt at a time. They texted on and off throughout the day. Nothing deep or particularly meaningful, just the casual back and forth of two people who'd discovered they liked talking to each other. Ryan sent her a photo of his grease-covered hands and the disassembled carburetor. She sent him a photo of the bruise blooming across her hip, spectacular in its size and color variation. He sent back a gif of someone falling dramatically. She sent back a middle finger emoji. It was ridiculous. It was juvenile. It was the most fun she'd had in longer than she could remember. By Monday, Celeste found herself looking forward to Thursday with an anticipation that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with blue motorcycles and brown eyes and hands that knew how to fix broken things. She spent Tuesday and Wednesday at the hotel, sitting in meetings and making decisions and playing the role of CEO with the same competence she'd always brought to the performance. But something had shifted. She caught herself noticing the maintenance staff, really noticing them, not just seeing them as moving parts of the machine. The woman who cleaned the lobby before dawn, singing softly to herself in Spanish. The man who fixed the elevator that stuck on the 7th floor, whistling while he worked. The whole invisible workforce that kept her empire running while she collected the credit and the money. She made a note to herself. Review maintenance salaries. See if they were actually competitive. Find out if benefits were adequate. Actually care about the people whose labor made her wealth possible. Thursday arrived like a promise kept. Celeste dressed carefully for work. The royal blue blazer because it was her armor, but also because she'd noticed Ryan's eyes linger on it. Denim shorts because the executive dress code was something she'd inherited but never fully embraced. Her finest blue shoes because details mattered. She saw him first in the parking garage, wiping down his Harley before starting his shift. The morning sun caught the chrome and made it shine like a promise, like possibility taking physical form. Celeste found herself walking toward him before conscious thought could interfere, before fear could talk her out of it. That's a beautiful machine, she said. Ryan looked up, surprise flickering across his face before settling into a smile that made her stomach do complicated things. Morning, boss. Celeste, she corrected gently. We've established that I'm Celeste, remember? In the privacy of your mansion, sure. In the hotel parking garage where anyone could hear, where HR could be watching, where the gossip mill runs faster than the internet. He gestured around. You're the boss. I'm the help. That's how this works. But his eyes were warm, taking the sting out of the formality, acknowledging the absurdity of the distance society insisted they maintain. Fair enough. She gestured to the bike. Can I see it up close? I've been admiring it from a distance, but I've never really looked. Ryan stepped back, letting her approach. She ran her fingers over the electric blue paint, feeling the smooth curve of metal and the hum of potential energy beneath. It was beautiful, not despite its rough edges, but because of them. A working machine, built for purpose and joy in equal measure, lovingly restored by hands that cared. Your father would be proud, she said softly, meaning it. Ryan's expression shifted, something raw and vulnerable passing across his features, before he locked it away behind his usual calm. Thank you. That means more than you know, more than I can really explain. I mean it. Celeste straightened, suddenly aware of the line she was towing. Employer and employee, class and circumstance. All the reasons this sudden connection should remain nothing but a pleasant memory of a Saturday when a stranger had been kind. But Ryan was looking at her like she mattered, like her words carried weight beyond her bank account. And Celeste was tired, so damn tired of pretending she didn't crave exactly that. I'm going to the beach this Saturday, she heard herself say, the words escaping before fear could stop them. There's a stretch of coast about an hour north that I used to ride to. Well, I used to ride Storm there before he tried to kill me. Now I'll probably drive like a normal person, maybe bring a book, sit in the sand and pretend I'm someone who knows how to relax. Sounds nice, Ryan said carefully, his tone neutral but his eyes watching her intently. It is nice. Quiet. Beautiful. The kind of place that reminds you the world is bigger than your problems. That there's still beauty and wildness that doesn't care about your tax bracket or your quarterly earnings. She took a breath, gathering courage. You should come with me, if you want. Bring the Harley. I'll bring the car. We can have a picnic or something equally cliché. Ryan studied her for a long moment. She could see him weighing it. The wisdom, the implications, the risk of crossing lines that society had drawn in permanent marker. The potential consequences for both of them, if anyone found out. If gossip spread. If lines got blurred too much. What time? He asked finally. 9 in the morning. I'll meet you here. It's a date, Ryan said, then immediately caught himself, color rising in his cheeks. I mean, not a date, just a thing, a friend thing. 2 people going to the beach as friends. I know what you meant, Celeste said, even though her heart was hammering against her ribs like it absolutely was a date. And they both knew it, and were both terrified and exhilarated in equal measure. She walked away before she could say something foolish, before she could reveal just how much Saturday suddenly meant. Behind her, she heard the Harley roar to life, and she smiled. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was every romance novel cliché she'd ever mocked, and every cautionary tale her mother-in-law had ever told about women who forgot their place. This was also the first time in 18 months she'd felt genuinely excited about the future. The first time waking up felt like possibility instead of obligation. Thursday and Friday crawled by with the speed of continental drift, each hour stretching like taffy. Celeste went through the motions at the hotel, signed papers, attended meetings, smiled at board members who looked at her and saw only a young widow playing at being a CEO, waiting for her to fail so they could swoop in and take control. None of it touched her. She was already somewhere else, a beach an hour north with a man on a blue motorcycle who saw her as Celeste instead of a $sign with legs. Saturday morning dawned clear and perfect, the kind of California morning that makes people move cross-country and regret it when summer turns everything brown. Celeste dressed carefully, not the blazer this time, but a simple white blouse and jean shorts, sandals instead of heels, a wide-brimmed hat that made her feel like she was in a movie about someone with a more interesting life than hers. She braided her hair like she'd done for horseback riding, leaving a few strands loose around her face. Natural, real, herself. Ryan was already in the parking garage when she arrived, leaning against his Harley with 2 to-go cups from the coffee shop down the street, and a smile that could have melted steel. He straightened when he saw her, and the look in his eyes was worth every nervous butterfly currently staging a riot in her stomach. Morning, he said, offering her one of the cups. Wasn't sure how you took your coffee, so I got it with room for cream and some sugar packets. You know, options. Black is fine, Celeste said, accepting the cup. Their fingers brushed, and she felt the contact like electricity, like possibility made physical. Thank you. For this and for showing up. Wouldn't miss it. Ready for an adventure? Ready as I'll ever be. They took separate vehicles, Celeste in her Mercedes, Ryan on his Harley, but the hour-long drive felt like companionship anyway. Watching him in her rearview mirror, the bike a flash of blue weaving through traffic with confident grace. She found herself matching her speed to his, staying close enough that they felt connected even separated by distance and metal. When they finally pulled into the deserted beach parking lot, Celeste's chest felt light with anticipation, and something else she couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. The possibility of something new beginning. The beach was exactly as she remembered. Wild and windswept. More rocks than sand. The kind of place tourists skipped in favor of prettier vistas with Instagram-worthy sunsets. That's what made it perfect. They had the whole stretch to themselves, just the crash of waves and the cry of gulls and the endless blue horizon stretching to infinity. Ryan parked his bike and pulled off his helmet, running a hand through hair that immediately stuck up in 5 directions. Celeste had brought a picnic basket. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches she'd made herself at 5 in the morning because she couldn't sleep, fruit from the farmer's market, bottles of water, cookies from the bakery she passed every day but never stopped at. They spread a blanket on the sand and sat side by side, shoulders almost touching, watching the ocean perform its eternal choreography. I haven't been to the beach in years, Ryan said after a while. Forgot how big it makes you feel. Like all your problems are just tiny dots against something infinite. Like maybe the things we worry about don't matter as much as we think they do. Marcus Aurelius again? Nah, that's pure Ryan Walker philosophy. He glanced at her, grinning. Though Marcus would probably approve. He was big on perspective, on remembering that we're small and the universe is vast and most of what we stress about is ultimately insignificant. They ate slowly, savoring the food and the moment in equal measure. Celeste found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in months. Not performing, not calculating, not managing anyone's expectations but her own. Just existing beside someone who seemed content to do the same. After lunch, they walked along the waterline, shoes left behind on the blanket like abandoned responsibilities. The Pacific was cold enough to make Celeste gasp when the waves hit her ankles, but Ryan just laughed and pulled her deeper until they were both soaked to the knees, squealing like children. "You're insane!" she shrieked, splashing water at him with both hands. "You're the one who agreed to come to the beach with a guy you barely know," Ryan shot back, dodging her splash and retaliating with his own. "What does that say about your judgment? That it's terrible, and I make impulsive decisions and I'm probably going to end up on a true crime podcast? That you're brave enough to take risks?" He caught her hand mid-splash, steadying her as a larger wave rolled in. "Not everyone has that courage. Most people would rather stay safe and lonely than risk getting hurt." His hand was warm around hers, calloused and solid and real. Celeste looked up at him, this man who'd appeared in her life like an answer to a question she hadn't known how to ask. The sun was behind him, turning his dark hair to bronze, and making him look like something from a dream, like possibility made flesh. "I'm not brave," she said quietly. "I'm just tired of being alone. There's a difference. Those things aren't mutually exclusive." Ryan's thumb traced a small circle on the back of her hand, the gesture tender and deliberate. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need someone. Admit that you can't do it all alone." "Do you need someone?" Celeste asked. "Or are you content with just your Harley and your books and your satisfying solitude?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where water met sky in a perfect line of blue on blue. When he spoke, his voice was raw with honesty, stripped of any pretense or armor. "I thought I was content. Convinced myself that independence was the same as happiness, that needing no one meant I was strong. But then, I met a woman who fell off a horse and looked at me like I was a person instead of the help, and suddenly contentment seems like a pretty low bar, a pretty lonely bar." Celeste's heart stopped, stopped again. "Ryan, I'm not good at games," he interrupted, "so I'm just going to say it straight, no pretense, no beating around the bush. I like you, Celeste. Not your money, not your hotel, not your fancy mansion, or your connections or any of that. You. The woman who kills cacti and rides horses alone and admits when she's lonely. The woman who ordered enough barbecue to feed a small army because she wanted an excuse for me to stay. The woman who remembers my name when most people in your position wouldn't even see me. I like you. And I hope, you might like me too." She should have been terrified. Should have remembered all the reasons this was a terrible idea. The class difference that society would never let them forget. The employer-employee dynamic that could cost Ryan his job. The gossip and judgment and inevitable complications. Her late husband's family watching for any excuse to declare her unfit. The board members waiting for her to fail. All of it. She should have remembered all of it. Instead, she stepped closer, closing the distance between them until she could feel the warmth radiating from his skin, until she could count the gold flecks in his brown eyes. "I'm more than like you," she whispered, the words barely audible over the crash of waves. "And that scares me to death." "Me too," Ryan admitted. "But fear is just a compass pointing toward things that matter, toward things worth being afraid for." More Ryan Walker philosophy, more truth than philosophy. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with impossible gentleness. "We can be scared together, or we can be brave together. Your choice." Celeste made her choice. She rose on her toes and kissed him. The world tilted, realigned, made sense for the first time in 18 months. Ryan's lips were warm and sure against hers, tasting like coffee and salt air and possibility. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, and she went willingly, her hands finding the front of his shirt and holding on like he was the only solid thing in a shifting universe. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Celeste felt transformed. Like the woman who'd climbed out of bed that morning had been a chrysalis, and this moment with this man, was her emerging with wings, ready to actually fly. "Well," Ryan said, slightly dazed, his eyes dark and warm. "Yeah," Celeste agreed, because words felt inadequate to describe the enormity of what had just shifted between them. They stayed at the beach until the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold and pink that looked like a promise. They talked about everything and nothing, dreams deferred and disappointments survived and hopes for the future they might build. Ryan told her about his dream of opening his own motorcycle shop someday, a place where people could come not just to fix their bikes but to find community, to learn, to belong. "I want to teach kids how to work with their hands," he said, eyes distant with vision. "Show them that there's dignity in manual labor, That building and fixing things is just as valuable as pushing paper in an office. Maybe more valuable because you can see what you've made. You can write it or live in it or give it to someone who needs it. Celeste confessed that she'd always wanted to write, to create something beautiful instead of just managing other people's creations. What would you write about? Ryan asked. I don't know. Maybe about this. About what it feels like to realize you've been living someone else's life. About finding the courage to change. About second chances and new beginnings and all the cliches that turn out to be true. So write it, Ryan said simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. You have the money to do whatever you want. Why not do what actually feeds your soul instead of what's expected? Because it's scary, Celeste admitted. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I fail? What if I prove everyone right who said I was never good enough for this life? Then you fail, and then you try again. Ryan squeezed her hand. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. You think I got my Harley running on the first try? I've rebuilt that carburetor 17 times, 17. But every failure taught me something new, made me better, made the final success actually mean something. 17 times? Celeste laughed, the sound bright and genuine. I'm either very persistent or very stupid. Jury's still out. He grinned. But the bike runs now, so I'm calling it a win. When was the last time she'd laughed like this? Not the polite chuckle she deployed at business dinners, but real laughter that came from deep in her belly and shook her whole frame, and left her gasping for breath. They packed up as the sun touched the water, both reluctant to let the day end, to return to the real world where they had roles to play and distance to maintain. The drive back felt different than the drive out, charged with potential, heavy with the weight of changed circumstances and decisions made and futures reimagined. At the hotel parking garage, Ryan walked her to her car, his hand finding hers in the space between their vehicles, fingers interlacing like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Thank you for today, Celeste said, for all of it, for taking a chance. Thank you for inviting me, for seeing me. Ryan brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles, the gesture old-fashioned and tender. For being brave enough to take this risk. When can I see you again? Ryan grinned. I work tomorrow. Thursday through Sunday, remember? You could accidentally run into me in the maintenance supply closet on the 3rd floor. Very convenient for totally unplanned encounters. Scandalous, Celeste said. But she was smiling, already imagining it. I'll see you tomorrow then. Accidentally. In a supply closet. It's a date, Ryan said again. And this time, neither of them corrected it. He kissed her one more time, soft and sweet and full of promise, then climbed onto his Harley and rode away into the fading light. Celeste sat in her car for a long time afterward, her fingers pressed to her lips, feeling the ghost of his kiss and wondering if it was possible to fall in love with someone in the span of a week, wondering if maybe, just maybe, she already had. The universe, it seemed, had delivered her a second chance wrapped in blue denim and motorcycle grease, and Celeste Davenport, CEO and professional controller of outcomes, and woman who'd forgotten how to want things for herself, was finally brave enough to take it. To take him. To take a chance on something real. Celeste sat in her office at the Melbrook Hotel, staring at the resignation letter she'd drafted and redrafted 17 times. The number made her smile. 17, like Ryan's carburetor rebuilds. Persistence or stupidity, the jury was still out. But she knew which one it was. It was courage. The past 3 months had been a masterclass in breaking rules and living authentically. She and Ryan had stopped pretending their relationship was anything other than what it was. Love, messy and complicated and absolutely worth every whispered conversation and stolen moment. They'd been careful at first, meeting in secret, maintaining distance at the hotel. But secrets have a way of becoming unsustainable when they're built on something real. 2 weeks ago, she'd stopped caring who saw them together. The board had noticed. Her mother-in-law had called, voice dripping with disapproval. Society pages had run photos of the billionaire CEO and her blue-collar beau, as if their relationship was a scandal, rather than simply two people choosing each other. Celeste had learned to let it wash over her like rain, unpleasant but temporary, incapable of touching what mattered. Her phone buzzed. Ryan's name lit up the screen. Ryan. Lunch? I'm bringing sandwiches and unwarranted optimism. She typed back. Office in 10 minutes. Bring enough optimism for both of us. I'm doing it today. Ryan. Proud of you. See you soon. 10 minutes later, Ryan appeared in her doorway, carrying a paper bag and wearing his blue maintenance uniform. He'd been fixing the air conditioning on the 5th floor. His hair was disheveled, there was a streak of grease on his forearm, and Celeste had never seen anything more beautiful in her life. Hey, he said, closing the door behind him. Hey, yourself. He set the bag on her desk and pulled her into his arms without preamble. Celeste melted into his embrace, breathing in the familiar scent of motor oil and soap and home. You okay? Ryan murmured into her hair. I'm terrified, she admitted, but also excited. Is that normal? Completely normal. Change is scary, but staying stuck is scarier. He pulled back to look at her face. You've been planning this for weeks. You've got buyers lined up for the hotel. You've set up trust for the employees. You've thought through every angle. All that's left is signing your name. Celeste glanced at the resignation letter, then at the purchase agreement sitting beside it. She was selling the Melbrook Hotel empire to a consortium that had promised to maintain all current staff and benefits. She was keeping enough money to live comfortably for several lifetimes, while giving a significant portion to establish a foundation for vocational education, teaching kids the trades the way Ryan had dreamed about. She was betting on herself, on a future she actually wanted instead of one she'd inherited. What if I fail? She asked quietly. What if I try to write and discover I have nothing to say? Then you'll have tried, Ryan said simply. And trying is never failure. It's the only way forward. She kissed him then, pouring 3 months of gratitude and love and hope into the gesture. When they broke apart, she picked up the pen and signed both documents without allowing herself time to second guess. Done. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for 18 months lifted like morning fog burning away under sunlight. I just quit my job, she said, slightly dazed. You just started your life, Ryan corrected, grinning. Big difference. That evening, they rode together on Ryan's Harley, Celeste's arms wrapped around his waist, the Pacific Coast Highway stretching before them like a promise. The wind whipped her hair free from its braid, and she laughed into the gathering dusk, feeling more alive than she had in years. They stopped at a roadside diner that served breakfast all day and coffee that could strip paint. The vinyl booths were cracked, the waitress called everyone Han, and the pie was better than anything Celeste had eaten at 5-star restaurants. I love this place, she said, attacking her slice of apple pie with genuine enthusiasm. I know you do, Ryan said. That's why I brought you here. I wanted to ask you something and it seemed right to do it somewhere honest, somewhere real. Celeste set down her fork, heart suddenly hammering. Okay. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. I know we've only been together 3 months. I know society says we're moving too fast, that we're from different worlds, that this can't possibly work. I know all of that. Ryan, let me finish. He squeezed her fingers. I also know that I love you. I know that every day with you is better than every day before you. I know that you see me, really see me, and that I see you the same way. I know that life is short and uncertain and that waiting for the right time is just another way of being afraid. He pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box that made Celeste's breath catch. I'm not asking you to marry me, Ryan said quickly. Not yet. But I am asking you to move in with me, to build something real together, to stop splitting our time between your mansion and my apartment and actually make a home. Together. He opened the box. Inside was a key, a simple brass key on a silver chain. It's a key to my place, he explained. But it's also a promise that wherever we end up, your mansion, my apartment, some completely new place we find together, it's ours. No more his and hers. Just ours. Celeste felt tears spill over, hot and unexpected and entirely welcome. You're asking me to move in with you? I'm asking you to choose us, Ryan said. Every day. The way I choose you every day. Yes, Celeste whispered. Yes to moving in. Yes to choosing us. Yes to building something real. Ryan slipped the chain around her neck, and the key settled against her heart like it belonged there. They sat in that diner for hours, talking about logistics and dreams, and the life they'd build together. Ryan told her about a building he'd found, an old garage with an apartment above it, perfect for the motorcycle shop he wanted to open. Celeste told him about the writing retreat in New Mexico she'd been researching, a month-long program for new writers that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. You should go, Ryan said immediately. Do the program. I'll hold down the fort here. Get the shop ready. When you come back, you'll have pages and I'll have a business plan. We'll build our dreams side by side. You'd be okay with me leaving for a month? I'd be okay with you pursuing your passion, Ryan corrected. Besides, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Or so I've heard. We can test the theory. Celeste laughed through her tears. I don't think my heart could grow any fonder of you. Give it time, Ryan said, grinning. I'm incredibly annoying to live with. I leave motorcycle parts in the living room and read philosophy books in bed and sing off-key in the shower. I can't wait, Celeste said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. The next morning, Celeste woke up in Ryan's apartment, a modest space above a laundromat that smelled faintly of detergent and motor oil. She could hear him in the tiny kitchen, whistling as he made coffee. The sound made her smile. She reached for her phone and saw the date, January 3rd, 2026. A new year, barely begun, full of possibility. She thought about where she'd been a year ago, lonely, trapped, living someone else's life, and where she was now, in a man's cramped apartment, unemployed by choice, planning a future she actually wanted. The transformation was almost unbelievable. Ryan appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. "Morning, beautiful. Sleep okay?" "Better than I have in years," Celeste said honestly. He handed her a mug and settled beside her on the bed. "I've been thinking. Dangerous habit. Very. But hear me out." He took a sip of coffee. "New Year's is for new beginnings, right? Fresh starts and all that hopeful nonsense." "I thought you didn't believe in hopeful nonsense." "I didn't. Then I met you." Ryan set down his mug and turned to face her fully. "I want to make this official. Not marriage. We'll get there when we get there. But I want to start this year by choosing us out loud, by telling everyone who matters that we're building a life together." Celeste felt her throat tighten. "What did you have in mind?" "Dinner," Ryan said. "At your place, our place, I guess, since I'm moving in. We'll invite the people who've actually supported us. Tom from the ranch, my mom, that board member who didn't try to have me fired. We'll cook together, eat together, celebrate together. Start this year the way we mean to continue, surrounded by people who see us for who we actually are." "I love that idea," Celeste whispered. "I love you. I love you too." Ryan kissed her forehead, tender and reverent. "And I have a good feeling about this year. About 2026, I think it's going to be the year everything changes for the better." "It already has," Celeste said, but she knew what he meant. The fall from the horse had been just the beginning, the catalyst that had cracked open her carefully constructed life and let the light in. Everything that came after, Ryan, love, courage, choice, was the real transformation. She'd fallen, quite literally, into destiny. And in falling, she'd finally learned to fly. 2 weeks later, they hosted that dinner. The mansion, their mansion now, as Ryan kept reminding her, filled with laughter and warmth and the smell of home-cooked food. Ryan's mother charmed everyone with stories about Ryan as a child, trying to fix his toys with duct tape and determination. Tom regaled them with tales from the ranch, including Storm's triumphant return after his panicked flight. The sympathetic board member toasted their courage in choosing authenticity over expectation. As Celeste looked around the table at these faces, people who loved them not for their bank accounts or social status but for who they actually were, she felt a peace she'd never known was possible. "I want to say something," she announced, standing with her wineglass. The table quieted, all eyes turning to her. "A year ago, I was convinced I knew what my life was supposed to look like. I had plans and expectations and a very clear picture of how things should be. Then I fell off a horse, and a stranger with a blue motorcycle showed up and saved me, not just from the fall, but from the life I was too afraid to leave." Ryan's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "This year, 2026, is already shaping up to be extraordinary. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm finally brave enough to choose imperfect and real over polished and empty. So here's my New Year's blessing for all of us. May we all have the courage to fall when we need to. May we all find someone who helps us back up. May we build lives we actually want instead of lives we think we should have. And may this year bring health, peace, love, and the wisdom to know when to hold on and when to let go." "Hear, hear," Tom called out, raising his glass. Everyone drank, the wine sweet on Celeste's tongue like the future itself. Later, after everyone had left and the dishes were done, Celeste and Ryan sat on the back porch of the mansion, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. "Thank you," Celeste said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me. For staying. For being patient while I figured out how to be brave." Ryan pulled her closer, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Thank you for taking the risk, for choosing this, choosing us, even when it was scary." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes from truly knowing someone. Celeste thought about the journey that had brought her here, the grief, the loneliness, the unexpected grace of connection. She thought about the writing retreat she'd leave for in 2 weeks, the motorcycle shop Ryan would open in the spring, the life they'd build together one choice at a time. "You know what Marcus Aurelius said?" Ryan murmured into her hair. "Tell me. Confine yourself to the present. The past is gone, the future is uncertain. All we have is right now, this moment. And this moment is pretty damn perfect." Celeste smiled into the darkness. That's good advice. He was a smart guy. So are you. I have my moments. Ryan kissed the top of her head. Happy New Year, Celeste. May 2026 bring you everything you deserve. Health, peace, joy, and all the words you need to tell your story. Happy New Year, Ryan, Celeste whispered back. May this year bring you success, love, and all the rebuilt carburetors your heart desires. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine and utterly right. And as the stars wheeled overhead and the new year stretched before them like an open road, Celeste Davenport, former CEO, future writer, woman in love, felt something she'd thought lost forever. Hope. The kind of hope that doesn't promise perfection but whispers possibility. The kind that says you fell but you got back up. You were lost but you found your way home. You were alone but now you're loved. And that, Celeste thought, was the best New Year's blessing of all.